And what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Historic Hot Laps. This week, we've got one of NASCAR's brightest young stars adding his name to the history books by conquering the Brickyard 400. Lando Norris finally breaks through for McLaren's first Formula One victory of the season. David Gravel reminds everyone why all these dirt tracks are basically his personal playground. We'll also discuss the surprising announcement that Alex Bowman plans to retire after 2027 season and what it means for NASCAR's most coveted rides. Then, in this week's history segment, we are diving into one of the wildest chapters of motorsports we've ever seen, and that's Group B Rally. 500-plus horsepower monsters, drivers who looked fearless, fans standing inches from the racing line, and a racing series so dangerous that it was banned almost overnight. It's one of the most unbelievable stories in motorsports history, so buckle up. I'm Alex Daniels, and this is Historic Hot Laps. All right, let's kick things off with the NASCAR weekend, Friday night under the lights of Lucas Oil, Indianapolis Raceway Park, where one driver put on an absolute clinic, and that is Lane Riggs. He wasn't just fast, he was nearly untouchable. Driving the number 34 Front Row Motorsports Ford, Riggs led an astonishing 198 of the 200 laps, swept both stages, and crushed his fifth victory of the season, outside of briefly losing the lead for just 2 laps after spinning the tires on stage 1 restart. Riggs had complete control of the race from start to finish. After Chandler Smith slipped by on the restart, Riggs wasted no time getting the lead back. Just 2 laps later, he made an aggressive move into turn 1, drove underneath his teammate to reclaim the top spot, and he never looked back from there. Connor Mozak stayed within striking distance over the closing laps, but Riggs simply had too much speed, crossing the finish line just over a second ahead to earn his second consecutive victory at IRP. After climbing from his truck, Riggs made it clear it wasn't just another win to him. He called this a statement victory, saying, "I think we're the ones to beat," and honestly, it's hard to argue with him. Winning 5 races in the season is impressive enough, but dominating nearly every lap at one of NASCAR's toughest short tracks sends a message to the rest of the garage that Front Row Motorsports has found something special heading towards the chase for the playoffs. Chandler Smith officially locked himself into the Truck Series chase alongside Riggs and Caden Honeycutt. Christian Eckes and Gio Ruggiero also secured their postseason spots, while Stuart Friesen climbed into the final transfer position after a solid 6th-place finish, which is great to see from him after his recovery and everything from the sprint car wrecks last year. On the other side of the cut line, Daniel Hemrick has one of the toughest nights of the season. A spin late in the race led to heavy contact with Landon Lewis, dropping Hemrick into 34th place and suddenly putting his playoff/chase hopes in a serious jeopardy with only 2 regular season races remaining. One of the night's feel-good stories, though, came from 18-year-old Gavin Bichelle, who finished 8th in his Truck Series debut, running inside the top 10 in your first NASCAR truck start. I mean, especially at the demanding track like IRP, is an impressive way to introduce yourself to the series. With Richmond up next, the championship battle is beginning to take shape, and right now Lane Riggs has all that momentum. Shifting over to Saturday, action across town at the historic Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Pennzoil 250. The race featured plenty of strategy, long green flag runs, and another reminder of just how bright NASCAR's future looks. When everything was settled, it was Carson Kvapil celebrating one of the biggest victories of his young career. Kvapil put together an incredibly disciplined race, staying near the front throughout the afternoon before capitalizing when the opportunity presented itself late. Winning at Indianapolis isn't just another trophy. It instantly becomes one of the defining moments on a driver's resume. The top 5 results are pretty wild for this one. You had Carson Kvapil, Justin Allgaier, Connor Zilic, and Sam Mayer, followed by Jesse Love. One of the biggest takeaways from Saturday wasn't just the winner. It was a collection of young talent running near the front. Carson Kvapil is making a compelling argument that he won't be in the Xfinity Series much longer. The NASCAR pipeline loaded with talent, and races like this give fans a preview of who could be battling for the Cup champion in just a few years. What was most impressive about this race was the finish of 4 in a row for JRM. All 4 of their rides in the top 4 finishing spots. An emotional thing at a track so special like IMS. Just absolutely insane to see that. And seeing the emotion from Dale Jr. was pretty cool as well. In the post-race interviews, I mean, they're doing things right over there. What can we say? I mean, they've got the best cars, the best engines. Obviously, the equipment's great, but they've got good top-tier line of drivers. And it's just impressive to see all around. So congrats to them on that. Let's kick it over to Sunday, because Sunday's crown jewel, the Brickyard 400, there are certain races that every driver dreams about winning, right? Daytona 500, Coca-Cola 600, Southern 500, and the Brickyard 400. And there's been a ton of debate about the Brickyard 400 and if it should be a crown jewel race and all this nonsense online. Listen, it's a crown jewel. Anybody who's walked into IMS understands what that track is and what makes it so special. It is what it is. it's a crown jewel. There's no argument about it. Yes, is the racing fairly boring? Absolutely. Is it hard to pass? Yes, 100%. But it's still a special place and a special thing to have NASCAR on that track. So anyway, moving on. Winning in Indianapolis forever puts your name alongside some of the greatest drivers of the sport we've ever seen. This year's race belonged to one of NASCAR's fastest rising stars, and that is Mr. Corey Heim, driving the number 67 Toyota for 23XI Racing on a part-time schedule, mind you. Heim delivered a composed, mature performance against some of the biggest names in the Cup Series. He kept himself in contention all afternoon, as we saw. He was avoiding mistakes. He executed when it counted. He held off Christopher Bell over the closing laps to score one of the biggest wins of his career. It's one of the things to win a Cup race. It's another entirely to win one of NASCAR's crown jewel races. And for Heim, this wasn't just another victory. It felt like an announcement that he simply wasn't a Truck Series standout, getting an occasional Cup opportunity, but that he belongs in the Cup Series. So let's talk about what this means moving forward, because every single time Corey Heim gets into a Cup car, he seems to exceed his expectations and everyone else's. He doesn't drive like someone trying to prove himself. He drives like someone who already believes he belongs in the series. That's a huge difference. He's very patient. He rarely overdrives the car. He communicates well with the team. And perhaps most impressively, he doesn't seem to be intimidated by the moment. Winning the Brickyard 400 only reinforces what many people have been thinking for months, and that's Corey Heim is ready for his full-time Cup ride. Obviously, it's going to be 23XI next year. I think he's locked into that number 35 car, but maybe they should run the 67. There was debate this week about it on Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin. I mean, he's still got great teammates there with Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick. They're building a stable over there at 23XI Racing, and drivers with Heim's combination of speed, consistency, and race management don't come around very often. He's shown he can win in trucks, compete at the front in limited Cup opportunities, 2 wins in 15 starts, and now he has one of NASCAR's most prestigious victories to his resume. I mean, he's in good company over there. If this trajectory continues, I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about Corey Heim as a weekly contender and eventually a championship contender within the next couple years. Sometimes you can tell when you're watching the beginning of something special, and this definitely feels like those moments. Right, now let's head across the Atlantic for round 15 of the Formula One World Championship at the Hungarian in Budapest, Hungary. The Hungarian has earned its nickname Monaco without the walls. It's a very tight, twisting circuit where passing is notoriously difficult there, making strategy, qualifying, and track position absolutely critical. And this year's Hungarian Grand Prix delivered plenty of drama. It looked early on like McLaren was headed for a dominant 1-2 finish, but by the end of the afternoon, only one papaya-colored car was left standing. Starting from pole position, Lando Norris looked strong all weekend, but it didn't take long for teammate Oscar Piastri to make things more interesting. On the opening lap, Piastri pulled off a brilliant move around the outside of turn 2 to steal the lead, setting up what looked like another classic McLaren battle. For the first half of the race, the two teammates traded blistering lap times, while Norris repeatedly told the team he believed he had the pace to go even faster if he could get clean air. Now, McLaren chose to let the drivers race, and the battle stayed incredibly close through the opening pit cycle. The turning point came just past halfway. While working through lap traffic, Piastri found himself behind Carlos Sainz in the Williams car, and the two made contact exiting turn 2, damaging Piastri's momentum and allowing Norris to capitalize with an extended second stint. By the time the pit cycle had finished, though, Norris had jumped his teammate for the effective race lead at that point. Then things went from bad to worse for the Australian. Just a few laps later, Piastri suffered a gearbox failure and was forced to pull off the circuit, bringing out the virtual safety car and ending what looked like a certain podium, or possibly even a race victory. From there, Norris was in complete control. He managed to restart perfectly, built a comfortable gap, and crossed the line nearly 15 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen to score his first Grand Prix victory of this season in 2026. It was also McLaren's first Grand Prix win of the year, and another reminder that when they get the strategy right, they have one of the fastest cars on the grid. Top 5 for this one, you had Lando, followed by Max, Kimi rounding out the podium there, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton rounding out the top 5 in the Ferraris, and Hamilton had a 5-second pit lane speeding penalty with that as well, and still took a 5th place spot, so not too bad there for him. Max Verstappen quietly put together a strong points day. While Red Bull didn't quite have the pace to challenge McLaren for the win, Verstappen maximized what the car had and brought home a valuable 2nd place finish. Mercedes rookie Kimi Antonelli continued his remarkable season by standing on the podium once again. Despite serving 3-place grid penalty before the race, Antonelli drove a smart, consistent race and held off Lewis Hamilton in the closing laps. Ferrari showed flashes of speed throughout the weekend, though, but strategy and penalties ultimately cost them. Hamilton crossed the line in fourth, but was assessed that penalty and got fifth. One of the other stories worth mentioning was George Russell's recovery drive and anti-stall issue at the start dropped him all the way to 21st place on the opening lap, but he methodically fought his way back through the field and finished 7th to salvage valuable championship points. The biggest takeaway from Hungary is pretty simple. McLaren appears to have found its rhythm. Their pace throughout the weekend was exceptional, and had it not been for Piastri's unfortunate retirement, we would likely have been talking about a dominant 1-2 finish for them. Instead, Lando Norris leaves Budapest with much-needed victory, renewed momentum, and a reminder to the rest of the grid that McLaren once again is a serious threat as Formula One heads into the next stretch of the championship. Now let's wrap up this week's race recaps by heading to the dirt, where the World of Outlaws sprint cars took on one of the most unique tracks on the schedule, Weedsport Speedway in New York, and once again, it was the David Gravel show. If there's any doubt that Weedsport is David Gravel's playground, it was a race this weekend. After finishing second on Saturday night, the defending World of Outlaws winner came back on Sunday to remind everyone why he became nearly unbeatable whenever he sees the Empire State in his mirror. Starting fifth in the 35-lap feature, Gravel wasted little time carving his way toward the front. By lap 7, he had already climbed into third, and just a few laps later, fans were treated by one of the best sequences of racing all weekend. First, Gravel drove underneath Sheldon Haudenschild, entering turn 1 and 2 to take over second. Then almost immediately, he ripped the high side through turns 3 and 4, carrying incredible momentum around race leader Logan Schuchart to complete a breathtaking pass for the lead. It's one of those moments that reminds you why sprint car racing is unlike anything else in motorsports. One corner you're running third, the next you're leading the race. From there, Gravel looked every bit as a champion. Late race traffic gave Haudenschild one final opportunity to close the gap, but Gravel expertly worked through the slower cars, never giving up the preferred racing line and driving away to another Weedsport victory. After the race, Gravel admitted the team actually struggled early in the evening. He said they were, in his own words, god-awful during the dash, but crew chief Cody Jacobs and the entire Big Game Motorsports team continued making adjustments before the feature. Those changes completely transformed the car. Gravel explained that finding grip in the bottom of turn 1 and 2, while attacking the cushion in turns 3 and 4, allowed him to take advantage of two different racing grooves. When Schuchart and Haudenschild battled each other and entering the corners, the top lane opened up just enough for Gravel to pounce. Sometimes great cars create great opportunities. Great drivers know exactly when to take them, and that's exactly what David Gravel did. This victory was Gravel's 9th of the season, tying Buddy Kofoid for the series lead in victories. Even more impressive is what he's accomplished specifically at Weedsport. Since joining Big Game Motorsports in 2021, Gravel has now made 8 starts in the New York Oval. His record, 6 victories and 2 runner-up finishes. Think about that for just 1 second. An average finishing position at that track of 1.25 over 8 races. In today's level of competition, that's almost unheard of. Sheldon Haudenschild continued his incredibly consistent summer by finishing second, giving the KCP Racing team its 13th podium finish in the last 18 races. Logan Schuchart rounded out the podium after leading laps for the second consecutive night and continues to build momentum with 7 top 5 finishes of the last 8. One driver who deserves a little extra recognition is Donny Schatz. The 10-time World of Outlaws champion started 17th and methodically worked his way through and finished up in 8th, earning the Hard Charger Award. It's another reminder that even after all these years, Schatz remains one of the smartest, most patient racers in sprint car racing. And finally, a quick tip of the cap to rookie Emerson Axsom, whose 4th place finish earned him Rookie of Race honors and continued to be what's a very impressive first season against the toughest sprint car champion in the world. The championship picture over there is starting to get real interesting. David Gravel has now tied Buddy Kofoid for the most victories of the season, and the defending champion is now looking like the driver everyone else needs to beat. When the Big Game Motorsports team unloads speed, they're incredibly difficult to race against, but with Sheldon Haudenschild consistently on the podium, Logan Schuchart finding speed, and Buddy Kofoid still collecting wins of his own, this championship battle is still far from over. The series is now going to head east to one of the toughest stretches of the season as the Outlaws renew their rivalry with the legendary Pennsylvania Posse beginning at Baps Motor Speedway before a weekend stop at the iconic Williams Grove. If history tells us anything, the Posse usually has a little extra motivation when the Outlaws come to town. That should make for some outstanding racing. Real quick, before we jump into this week's motorsports news, let's take a quick second to thank our sponsor that helps keeping us rolling here every week, and that's Dubby Energy. If you're anything like us, race weekends can be long. You got qualifying, support series, late night dirt races, and catching on every lap around the world. You need the energy that actually lasts, and that's where Dubby comes in. Unlike a lot of energy drinks loaded with sugar and artificial ingredients, W is completely sugar-free, contains no fillers, no artificial colors or dyes, and no hidden ingredients. It's also gluten-free and proudly made right here in the United States. What really sets W apart, though, is the flavor lineup. Every flavor is uniquely crafted by W, so you're not just getting the same tired energy drink taste you've had 100 times before. And here's something that your wallet will appreciate. Each serving costs around $1 or less, making it much better value than grabbing a coffee on the way to work or picking up another canned energy drink somewhere along the way. If you're looking for clean energy that helps you stay focused, whether you're watching races, gaming, working, hanging out in the garage, or just tackling your day, give W a try. Head over to w.gg and use promo code HOTLAPS at checkout and save yourself 10% on your order. That's HOTLAPS for 10% off. We appreciate W Energy for supporting us over here at Historic Hot Laps. Now let's get back to the show. All right, not a lot of news to talk about this week, but we do need to touch on Alex Bowman announcing that he will retire, at least full-time retire, maybe run some part-time stuff after the 2027 season. The announcement came alongside news that Bowman has signed a one-year extension with Hendrick Motorsports, meaning he'll be behind the wheel of the iconic number 48 Chevrolet through next season before stepping away from full-time racing. For a long time, NASCAR fans, Bowman's journey is one of the more remarkable stories of the modern era. He didn't arrive with massive sponsorship or a guaranteed path to success. He fought his way through underfunded teams early in his career before getting the opportunity of a lifetime in 2016 when he filled in for the injured Dale Earnhardt Jr. at Hendrick Motorsports. That opportunity eventually led to a full-time ride in the number 88 car and later the legendary number 48 following Jimmy Johnson's retirement. Over his Cup Series career, Bowman has collected 8 victories, qualified for the playoffs 7 times, and enjoyed a career-best 4-win season in 2021. But his career has also been marked by resilience, battling through a concussion in 2022, a back injury in 2023, and more recently this year with the vertigo that forced him to miss 4 races earlier this season. Bowman said the decision came after spending a lot of time thinking about what's next, adding that racing demands so much physically and mentally that he felt it was important to listen to his body and chose the right time to step away. His focus now, he says, is simple: win more races, finish his career on a high note. This announcement also creates one of the most coveted openings in all of motorsports, the number 48 Hendrick Motorsports that has been driven by Jimmy Johnson, one of the greatest champions the sport has ever seen, and then by Alex Bowman for the last several seasons. So naturally, speculation has already begun. Who gets that seat in 2028? There are plenty of talented young drivers who will be mentioned over the next year, but one thing is certain: when Hendrick Motorsports rides become available, just about every rising star in NASCAR wants to be a part of that conversation. For now, though, the focus shifts back to Alex Bowman. He's got one more full season after this to add a victory to his legacy, and you can bet the NASCAR fan base will be cheering to see the driver in the number 48 make one last trip to victory lane before he hangs up the helmet. Now for our favorite segment of the show, the history segment. If I asked you what the craziest era in motorsports history was, some of you might say Formula One in the turbo era, others might say Can-Am monsters in the early 70s, maybe the unrestricted sprint cars of today, but there's one answer that almost every motorsports historian agrees on, and that's Group B Rally. An era where cars produced well over 500 horsepower, weighed barely 2,500 pounds, reached 60 miles an hour on loose gravel in around 3 seconds, and raced through forests at nearly 140 miles per hour, with thousands of fans standing inches from the racing line. It sounds made up, but it's not. For just 4 incredible seasons, Group B produced some of the greatest drivers, some of the wildest cars, one of the darkest chapters in motorsports that we have ever seen. This is the story of Group B. Let's take it back to the early 1980s. Rally racing was already widely popular across Europe. Unlike Formula One or NASCAR, rally wasn't confined to a racetrack. Drivers raced across forests, mountain passes, snow, mud, desert, even public roads closed temporarily for competition. The driver wasn't alone either. Every rally car carried a co-driver whose job was reading pace notes at an incredible speed. Imagine hearing left 4 into right 6, over the crest, don't cut, caution jump into hairpin left, while you're flying through a forest at a triple-digit speed. Absolute insanity. Then came 1982. The FIA introduced an entirely new class, and that was Group B. The rules were simple. Manufacturers only had to build 200 road-going versions of the car to qualify. That's it. No major restrictions, minimal weight limits, turbochargers go ahead, superchargers sure, four-wheel drive absolutely, composite materials, why not? Manufacturers suddenly had almost complete engineering freedom, and they took that challenge personally. The first company to truly unlock the formula was Audi. Before Group B Most rally cars were rear-wheel drive. Audi showed up with something revolutionary, the Audi Quattro, permanent all-wheel drive. Many people laughed at first. The car was heavier, more complicated, and it changed rally forever. The extra traction meant drivers could put enormous power to the ground on gravel, snow, and mud. Within a couple seasons, everyone else was scrambling to build four-wheel drive machines. Audi hadn't just built a winner, they had built something that had rewritten rally racing. Then came the horsepower war. Every manufacturer wanted more power. 300 horsepower became 400, 400 became 500. In the final years of Group B, some estimate placed qualifying engines above 600 horsepower. Now, remember, these weren't giant stock cars. These were compact hatchbacks weighing roughly the same as today's Mazda Miata. The power-to-weight ratios rivaled Formula One cars on dirt with trees. The list of legendary machines became almost mythical. The Audi Sport Quattro, the Peugeot 205 Turbo 16, the Lancia Delta S4, the Ford RS200, the MG Metro 6R4. Each one looked like something out of a science fiction movie with massive wings, huge turbochargers, aggressive bodywork, explosive acceleration. Even today, collectors pay millions for surviving examples. But horsepower wasn't the only thing making these cars terrifying. Turbo lag, today's turbocharged cars respond almost initially. These did not. Drivers would step on the throttle, nothing, still nothing, then suddenly everything. 500 horsepower would arrive almost like flipping the light switch. Drivers often described the cars as trying to kill them, and they weren't exaggerating. Now, imagine driving one, narrow gravel roads, massive cliffs, dense forest, blind corners, no runoff areas, no catch fencing, no barriers, and thousands of spectators out there. Not behind fences, not behind walls, standing literally on the road. Many would wait until the very last second before jumping out of the way. Sometimes they'd actually touch the cars as they passed. It became part of the spectacle. Looking back today, it's almost unbelievable organizers would even allow it. And then let's talk about the legends of the sport, the heroes. You had Finnish legend Ari Vinen, Walter Rohr, Henry Tiaven, Stig Blomqvist, Michelle Mattoon. And yes, Michelle Mattoon deserves special recognition. She became one of the greatest rally drivers in history, driving the Audi Quattro. She nearly won the rally championship in 1982. No woman has come closer to winning the overall title since. She proved that talent behind the wheel mattered far more than stereotypes. The competition became fierce. Audi versus Peugeot, Lancia versus Ford. Every rally seemed to introduce faster technology, lighter materials, bigger turbos, better suspension. The cars evolved almost monthly. Some engineers later admitted development was happening faster than anyone could safely test. The cars were becoming monsters. Then came 1985 at Rally Argentina. Ari Vinen suffered a terrifying crash. His Peugeot launched off the road at high speed. The impact was so violent, his seatbelts failed. He suffered life-threatening injuries and spent months recovering. Many believed it was a warning. Unfortunately, it was not the last. Then came Portugal in 1986, one of the darkest days in rally history. Driver Joaquim Santos lost control after trying to avoid spectators who had crowded onto the course. The car plowed into the crowd. 3 spectators lost their lives. Dozens more were injured. Nearly every factory team withdrew from the event in protest over crowd safety. The warning signs were impossible to ignore, but the tragedy that truly ended Group B happened just weeks later. The Tour de Corse, often called the Rally of 10,000 Corners, Lancia star Henry Tiaven, one of the fastest and most gifted drivers of his generation, driving the fearsome Delta S4, a twin-charged machine using both turbocharger and supercharger on a downhill section. Tiaven's car left the road, it plunged into a ravine, fuel tanks ruptured, the car burst into flames almost instantly. Henry and co-driver Sergio Cresto never escaped. There were no skid marks, no witnesses could explain exactly what had happened, only the burned remains of one of the greatest rally cars ever built. He was just 29 years old at the time. The FIA had seen enough. Group B was banned, not phased out, not modified, straight up banned at the end of the 1986 season. The fastest rally cars ever built disappeared almost overnight. Some manufacturers had already developed even more extreme replacements. Cars rumored to produce 700 horsepower. Those machines never officially raced. The world would never know just how fast Group S, the planned successor for Group B, could have become because the FIA canceled the class before it ever debuted. Today, Group B lives almost like folklore. Modern rally cars are astonishingly quick, but they're also dramatically safer. Spectator areas are controlled. Drivers have vastly improved safety equipment. The cars are engineered to absorb impact rather than simply chase more speed. Group B taught the sport a painful lesson. Sometimes technology advances faster than safety. Yet, despite everything, fans still remember Group B in awe. Watch old footage today. You'll see flames shooting from exhaust pipes, cars flying over the crest, drivers wrestling steering wheels through the forest, crowds scattering at the last possible second. It looks less like racing and more like controlled chaos. It was terrifying. It was spectacular. And for just 4 unforgettable years, it may have been the most outrageous form of motorsports the world has ever seen. And that's going to do it for us on this episode. As always, thank you so much for spending part of your week with us. Whether you're listening on your morning commute, working in the shop, getting ready to race next weekend, whatever the case may be, we appreciate every single one of you who continue to support the show. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Share the show with a fellow racing fan. Every review, every share, and every download helps us continue to grow this incredible motorsports community. Don't forget to follow Historic Hot Laps on social media, where we post races, highlights, behind-the-scenes stuff, a bunch of YouTube shorts, all the other stuff, and all the latest news from across the racing world that week that we see. Once again, a huge thank you to our friends at W Energy for supporting the show. If you'd like to support Historic Hot Laps while getting a clean tasting energy for race weekends, head over to w.gg and use promo code HOTLAPS to save 10% on your order. Next week's a special one for us, episode 100. It's hard to believe we reached this milestone. We can't wait to celebrate it with all of you. We've got some exciting plans in the works, so you're not going to want to miss it. Until next time, remember, every legendary race becomes history, and at Historic Hot Laps, we'll be there to tell the story. I'm Alex Daniels. Thanks again. Stay safe. Thanks for tuning in.